All right, so now we're going to create our very own random number generator. Okay, so let's go ahead and design the app. So the only two things that we're going to need on our screen is a button and a text view to display the random number. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this. And now with our text view, we're going to bring it right into the center between the button and the top of the screen. And another thing I want to do here is to increase the size of this text. Because as you can see here, the text is pretty small. We have all this space on the screen, but the text is only occupying this small space right here. So to make changes to any item on the screen, once you click it to the right, you'll see all the different attributes that can be changed. If you click all attributes here at the bottom, you'll see a whole range of different attributes. So what we're actually looking for is the text size, which is this one right here. And if you truly don't want to scroll through everything, we can also do a search here for the specific attribute we're looking for. So you'll click the search and then type size. And here we can see our text size. We're going to increase our text size to, let's see how 34 looks like. Yeah, it looks big, but we want something bigger. So let's go for 48. Okay, perfect. And now let's try to change the text here. So instead of hello world, let's just put something random, like a number. Let me clear my search. There's also another attribute called text, and that is the text that is initially displayed on the screen. So for this, it will be hello world unless it's changed later on in the program to something else. So instead of hello world, I'm just going to modify this and make this 0. Okay, so now we're done with our main text. Let's modify this button. So the attribute that we want to modify for this button is the text that is displayed on the button. So once again, we can either scroll through all of these to try to find which attribute we want to modify, or we can just simply search for it. In this case, I want to modify the text. So I search for text and I can see that here. And I'll make this generate number, generate random number. So that's it. Our design here is pretty much complete. So now let's go over to our code view. So here you can see that we have this in red, and that is because we no longer have that text field item. So we can go ahead and just remove this since we don't need it. And for the action, we have to determine now what we want to happen once the button gets clicked. So first, I want to get a random number, and I'm going to use the random function in our math class. Okay, so essentially what I'm doing here is generating a random number from 1 to 10, or in this case is 0 to 9. So let me add +1 so that it becomes 1 to 10. And then once I get that number, I'm going to display it on our main text. So I'm going to use the set text function to display that. Okay, so that's it. Just add in these 2 lines of code here. So let's go ahead and test this out. I'm going to run our app. Okay, so as you can see, the default text here is no longer hello world. It's 0. So if I click generate random number, I should expect a random number to be generated and displayed. So let's go ahead and test that out. Let's try this again. So it works just like we expect. Every time we click generate random number, we get a random number between 1 and 10. So I want the user to be able to select their own range of numbers. Okay, so let's go ahead and make those modifications to our app. So I'm going to stop this and then go back to our view here. And the widget that we're going to use here is a discrete seek bar. So I'm just going to place that on our screen. And just like we always do, let's apply some constraints. So we're going to put this in the center and we'll constrain it to the top. And then we'll add some padding or some margin to the top so that's not all the way up to the top. And for the layout width here, instead of wrap content, we're going to select match constraints because I want this to be spread across the screen like this. So now that I've selected match constraint, that means that whatever values I select here for the padding or the margins would be the values that are used for this widget. So let me go ahead and make space of 16 on both sides. You know what? Let's make it the same as the top. So 32 on the sides and the top. So it should be fine. Okay, so now let's talk about how this discrete seek bar works. So in this case, we have about 10 options here. All these dots are options. So right now, 3 is selected. If you select this, it would be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10. So by default, this third one is selected. So it's a 0, 1, 2, 3. And we can change the defaults here. So if you scroll down to the common attributes, you can see that the max here is set to 10. The selected one is 3. And I can simply change the default just by changing this progress option here. So as you can see now, the default is set to 5. So like I mentioned before, we're going to use the user selection here to determine the range of our random numbers. So let's do that in our code. Let's find the name. We'll call this the seek bar. So let's create the variable for our new seek bar. Now, instead of times 10, we're going to use the value of the seek bar. So it will look like this. So it's my seek bar dot get progress. Okay, so now let's go ahead and run our app again. So now we should get a number between 1 to 5. So I'm going to generate a random number. And as you can see, every time we generate a random number, it's a number that is between 1 and 5. And if we wanted to, we can increase that range to, let's say, 1 to 9. And as you can see, my random numbers are now in that range. Or we can reduce that range. Let's say we only have 2 options to pick from. We'll reduce that, and then we generate the random numbers again. So now whenever I click random, I get either 1 or 2. So now we've created our very own random number generator. So we're going to use what we've learned so far to create a dice roller.